What's up? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Rainy morning on the way.
We are surviving the flood.
You see the wet spots? It's because we ran in here to be with you guys.
I saw a dude on a boat with a bunch of animals.
It's raining that hard. Well, that would not be out of the ordinary.
Two of each kind.
My feet are completely drenched.
Mine are done.
It's pretty rough, but I didn't have the canes. We're trying to get the canes,
dude. So yeah, okay, this is pretty organic here. I wear these canes every day, and little did I know that the ownership group of canes belongs to the same golf course that I belong to, and I've been getting complimented by this pair of dudes that are always like at the bar hanging out when we go. We bring our kids to the pool. And he's like, "Yo, six shoes every time," and I wear a different pair. And then one time he was like, "Yeah, my brother owns it. We're all part of like the Canes family." And I was like, "Hey, let's go, pushing the pile. I'm gonna get these guys canes for Christmas. Okay, let's go."
People have been talking them up, so I'm excited.
Let's get a partnership going
today in Florida. It's probably not surprising that this is where they were started, given what we saw outside today. All right, first off the ball segment. No news bigger than Kirk Cousins bench.
Yep.
Michael Penix to start. We called for it last week.
I called for it 2 weeks ago.
And I thought nothing. We've talked about this yesterday with Pete. Nothing I saw on tape changed my opinion on that. It's like, they won, but it wasn't as if anything he did was any different. It was just they faced a far, far worse defense, in my opinion. And so I don't know if Penix is going to be better. I've liked what I saw on like his 6 dropbacks. I mean, he looks comfortable at minimum. It wasn't panicky.
Guy's taking a lot of snaps in his life.
He has a much, much stronger arm than Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see. I'm excited.
I mean, honestly, when you look at the landscape of the league, it's not crazy to think that he might have a top 5 arm strength in the league just coming out. You got to think.
I'm thinking.
Mahomes, Allen.
I put Allen.
He might be there with Herbert, though.
Nah, I'd put Allen and Herbert ahead of him.
They are just.
No, of course, Allen. Mahomes probably too.
Mahomes I'd say is stronger.
Anthony Richardson,
yeah, probably.
We're just going arm strength.
We're not talking about accuracy, obviously.
Yeah. Who can really sling it? I mean, Caleb's, I think, was stronger even in this.
Great arm.
Really?
Yeah. I think Caleb's.
We just never see him throw the football. Okay.
It's so hard to judge arm strength when
you're not throwing it.
Okay.
I was gonna say at Washington we saw
let's keep moving here, guys.
We saw Penix laid out there in Washington.
It's a plus arm.
But we talked to Matt Ryan about this because we have Matt Ryan on our Monday show, and if you guys don't catch us every Monday, we get the former MVP Matt Ryan of NFL Today to come on and give us his quarterback of the week, talk about some of the quarterback stuff. He talks about how important it is to have that arm talent and how much it opens up different parts of the field. That's one thing he pointed out with Josh Allen. You take a look at where his launch points are. Sometimes he's right by the first down marker on the sideline. He could be rolling left at 16 miles an hour, throwing back across his body to the right. And when you have that kind of arm talent, it opens up everything. And I promise you that skill room, all those skill rooms in Atlanta are excited because they know they're going to get more opportunities. And it's not an indictment on Kirk Cousins. This is just the reality of Father Time and going through some of the injuries that Kirk has gone through. And you know what? Like the guy from Step Brothers said, what if we get a look at the young bull? Maybe it's time for the young vet.
Now it's time for the young bull.
Maybe it's time to take some craps with the door open in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, me and Mike talked about this last week because we actually broke down the Monday night game before they played the Raiders. And the issue with Kirk Cousins is he doesn't look healthy out there on the field, right? This is one of the best play action pass quarterbacks we've seen in the last, I would say, decade, right? That's literally where he made his hay. And to have an effective play action pass game, you got to be up under center. And for most of the majority of the losing streak, he's been in shotgun pistol set, which would make you think he isn't comfortable taking the snap from under center, getting to his drop point, planning on that foot, and releasing the football. Again, that's what made him deadly in this league for a long time. So Zach Robinson, the offensive corner, was kind of minimizing what he could do offensive scheme-wise. And I think it came to a point where, and I stated this last night because I went up with the breaking news when Michael Penix was named the starter, that most coaches know the temperature of their locker room. And I had been saying this 2 weeks ago, like Raheem Morris is in a difficult situation because this is why you get paid the big bucks to be a head coach. Kirk Cousins, you paid a boatload of money essentially on a 2-year deal to bring him in, right? To essentially give you guys a chance to make a run in the playoffs. But the offense has not been playing well, and a big portion, if not most of the portion, has been because of Kirk Cousins, right? So now you worry about losing the locker room if you continue to put this guy out there. And also, we got to remember, Kirk doesn't have any cachet in this locker room. He just got there this offseason. Yep. So it's not like
has
he's
the
been
biggest
there.
bag.
Exactly. It's not like he's been there for numerous years, built up that continuity where, we believe Kirk will turn it around, right? We have faith in him. We've seen it before. We've seen it before. That hasn't happened in Atlanta. And also, you took a guy in the top 10 where these guys throughout training camp, throughout all season, even during practice, have seen him, and I've heard reports that he's been lighting it up in practice.
It sounds like when Patrick was in Kansas City, and you hear some of those guys.
You had Alex Smith there.
When they talk about, and Alex Smith was a great player.
Really good player.
But you hear those guys like Travis talking about how much damage Patrick was doing on a day-in, day-out basis and how it would kill the confidence of the defense. Because they had
exactly. So you got to think, not only did Michael Penix look good in training camp, but he looked good in preseason, so much so that they didn't even play him the last preseason game.
Yeah.
Like people question Raheem Morris, like, why is he not playing? There's a reason he's not playing because they feel like there might be a chance that they have to go to him and they don't want to put him in harm's way. So I thought this was the right move. Again, me and Mike were talking about the schedule and how it's set up. You probably didn't want to put him out there versus Minnesota or Denver with those blitzing defenses and the way those defensive linemen can get after the quarterback. But I thought the Raiders was a perfect spot for him. No Max Crosby, the secondary beat up. Like, this is how you kind of get integrated into the offense, into the NFL. And then you have the Giants after that. Like, before you play the Commanders, I think that would have been a perfect 2 games set for him to get ready for that playoff-like game versus the Commanders. So I think it just came to a head, and Raheem Morris was saying, I can't lose this locker room. Like, we've given Kirk multiple opportunities. And even in the win, like Mike said, the offense looked abysmal. If this is an indictment on Kirk Cousins, they refused to put the ball in his hands at the end of the game to close out the game versus the Raiders. It was run, pass. And they got to let off the hook because they got a personal foul roughing the pass, which was awful.
Yeah.
Spillane, don't change anything you did,
great
Spillane.
Play.
That was a great play by you. That was an awful call by the ref. So they gave him another opportunity to close out the game, and Kirk Cousins couldn't do it. So I just think Raheem Morris knew the temperature of his locker room and was like, I can't lose these guys in this locker. I got to make a change. Let's go ahead and put the young guy in. There's a reason why we took him in the top 10.
And when you were talking about the differences between the gun play actions and the under center play actions, I can tell you from an offensive lineman perspective, when the place, if it's, let's say 95 versus a 35, 95 in the terminology I've played under is an under center heavy run to the left. If I hear 35, then all that is the gun version of that play. And what the fake is, it becomes a token fake, which is like, we're going to have this back crossing formation. He'll probably end up blocking the backside end or whoever comes off the edge, scam protection. But when you're heavy under center, that second level of the defense, the first level of the defense, the defensive linemen, they feel it. You get that impact. But if you've got a quarterback who's not confident getting back to 8 yards or whatever the drop is, whatever the hell it is, it's all behind me. I don't know. If he can't get to that spot, we don't get the suck from that second level of defense. We don't get the same level of respect. And I know Zach Robinson wants to go through that progression, and it just seems like they can't. And that's why we're going to Michael Penix. That coupled with the fact that he's got the arm talent that we know he does, the prolific touch passes we've seen, the deep balls we saw at Washington. This guy's going to be fun to watch, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta Falcons look the part this coming week.
Quick scouting report on Penix for those like unfamiliar with his game. The things he does differently than Cousins is he has a much stronger arm. We touched on it. He's a much better athlete. I mean, you're at a 4.58. He can evade. He doesn't use it oddly enough. Like he has speed. It's almost like Desmond Ridder, where it's like you almost never see it unless he's really out in the open field. It's not a big part of his game, but he has that if they want to utilize that to maybe make his life a little easier early on. And he's aggressive, man. He's a downfield passer.
You don't let it fly.
Chances. He is going to take those down the field. Now, while I was a little lower on him than where he ended up going 8th overall, even though I still didn't hate that pick, was he's never been the most accurate guy. He missed a lot of throws dating back to Indiana, Washington, wherever, and he's been banged up a ton was the other big thing with him. Multiple ACLs.
Lower body,
shoulder injury as well. Like he went through the ringer, but NFL ready, 6 years in college. Like the same thing we've said about Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, why they hit the ground running, should apply to Michael Penix.
Correct.
So I do think we're all in agreement that it was not only time, it was probably a little overdue in Atlanta. All right, there you have it. There's our first off the ball segment. We're going to get to storylines and deep dives right after this.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance, but you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Test.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our deep dive segment for this week. Leger, what do you got for us?
Oh, man. There's an epidemic, and it's been going around the league for multiple years. And Mike and Kyle, I'm still baffled that it's happening in our league. And it's goal line fumbles when any player, running back, defensive player, decides that they want to celebrate a little bit too early before crossing the goal line. And Kyle, even since Little League, we always had this saying, finish the drill. Finish the drill. Like, it's 2 more steps, right? But yet we see it multiple times. We saw it this year, and I'm going to have Harry play some clips of players that have, fed into this epidemic, crossing the goal line right here. Jordan Battle, you're a defensive player. How many times are you going to score a touchdown? Like, what are you doing? Finish the drill.
His teammate
Jonathan Taylor, you would never expect this from a veteran guy, leader on the team. Literally 6 inches right there. Finish the drill. Get into the end zone. Look at this. Like, dude, 2 more steps. Not even 2 more. 1 step. Get in the end zone, then you can drop the ball. And my thing is, Kyle and Mike, what is the purpose of dropping the ball right when you cross the goal line anyway? Malachi Corley, your first time playing in the NFL. You get an end around, right? Finish the drill. Get into the end zone. Look at this. He stopped about a half yard short of the end zone. Get into the end zone. You have to finish. I liken it to pass rushing, Kyle. Like, it's like you set up the move. You beat the guy around the corner, but then you don't burst to the quarterback to collect the sack.
It's like a Friday practice.
It's all about the finish. You have to finish the drill. I don't understand how this is still happening in 2024, because I've been in some of those offensive meetings because I was in the goal line package in the league.
Report.
Dan Skipper, report. And a coach would always say, the only time you either reach the ball across the goal line or potentially drop it is if it's 4th down.
Yeah.
Other than that, you run through the end zone. You never reach the ball out. So I don't understand when you have a full head of steam. Like, my thing is, get to the back wall before you drop the ball. That way you're comfortable. Don't even get to the goal line. Get to the back wall, then drop the football if you want to. Or get in the goal line and run horizontally, then you can drop the ball. Like, I don't understand how this is still happening.
Out of the back of the end zone.
Exactly.
Outside of the end zone before you drop it. There's 2 end zones.
I think you should do something with like a spike, throw the ball, kick the ball.
Like,
something.
You don't want to celebrate.
Get that ball.
But I think it's like, I think it's just a mental thing. Like, guys will drop the ball and, like, look up, put their chest out a little bit. But it's just like, Malachi Corley, first of all, why are you dropping the ball? That's your first NFL touchdown. You need to keep that anyway.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor, I know you scored 1,000,000 times.
That's bad situational awareness on Corley.
Like, yeah, like that's a keepsake. That's a keepsake. That's your first NFL touchdown. Why would you not run through the back of the end zone? Like, you should be so excited that you're going to run through the back of the – matter of fact, run through the tunnel.
Yeah.
Run through the tunnel.
Jackson.
You know what I'm saying?
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Just keep going, right? Forrest Gump it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Forrest Gump it. The Jonathan Taylor thing was really baffling because, again, this is one of the best running backs, and some considered a few years ago the best running back in the league. And literally that was the swinging point in that game because they go up 2 scores right there. And I don't know if you guys have done the research, but when Bo Nix is either tied or down in games, it doesn't look good. Case in point, 3 interceptions this last Sunday. So, like, that might have been something that the Denver Broncos wouldn't have been able to overcome. Now, Bo Nix didn't win them the game. The defense and special teams won them the game.
And the double throwback.
Correct. That's what I'm saying, the defense. Nick Bonito.
Yeah.
But, like, those are scenarios where you just have to finish drill. And I go back to Jordan Battle. The defense has been abysmal the entire year for the Bengals. You have an opportunity to score not 1 touchdown on defense, but 2 in the same game.
Yep.
And you literally just fumble the bag at the half-yard line. First of all, I didn't understand what he was doing with the ball. Like, he was trying to move it to the other hand. It's just like, dude, you're not in that position often. Run through the ball. And like Mike said, if you're on defense and you run through why are you moving the ball? What are you doing here?
I think I'll give him some credit. He was trying to do something with it, and he just lost it. He's not dropping it intentionally.
Yeah, but my thing is, why are you doing that? Just
why is
run
he?
through the
Yeah, I
end zone. And again, we all make mistakes, so I don't want to like berate any of these players. But it's just like, as a defensive player, if I had an opportunity to get into the end zone, I'm not moving the ball until I'm in the end zone, because, like Mike said, I want to do a celebration after that.
Nice.
Like, one, I'm keeping the ball, but two, the ball is going to be involved in the celebration. So I'm going to make sure I get through the threshold of the end zone. So it's crazy in 2024 that this is still happening, and coaches talk about it every year.
Well, it's like happening more,
which is ridiculous. So, like, again, finish the drill, protect the football, cross the goal line, go through the back of the end zone before you drop the ball.
Because when Deshaun Jackson did it, it was unheralded, right?
Correct.
There had not been. That's why it was such a story at the time.
Getting hawked.
Well, but he got hawked.
Yeah,
he didn't protect the ball though.
Yeah.
It's different to like willingly give up the rock.
Correct. Then they get it knocked out of your head.
Knocked out. It's like to let up and know that you're going to score. Willingly giving it up for the end zone is just like, that was unheard of at the time, and now we're seeing it yearly.
Protect your chickens.
Which leads me to my next little anecdote here. It's like we all have friends that in college or in high school, they weren't exactly smooth with the ladies. But somehow, by the grace of God, every once in a while, there's a lady who's interested in this guy. And then you watch him go through the courting process, and they finally get the opportunity to go to dinner. And then, they hang out another time. And then eventually she's like, hey, maybe we could go, shoot some pool or something in my house.
Yeah.
And the guy like trips on the stairs
Fumbles
going
the
up.
bag.
That's what this reminds me of. In addition to that, I think the way that you can get out of this is have some sort of little receptacle for the football that's on the back wall behind and make it a celebration, like the Salvation Army bucket in Dallas.
Yeah,
they jump into. Create one of those at your stadium.
Maybe a cam, like a celebration cam.
Or like put a little Nerf hoop on the back wall and let your guys dunk it. It's like the turnover chain. This is the touchdown rim. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it used to be the goalpost. They got rid of that.
Well, we can't do that anymore. Tony Gonzalez, right? Was he the reason?
Jimmy Graham probably.
Was the reason.
He bent the
Jimmy Graham. I know some of these basketball freak athletes. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, you got to finish the drill.
The Bengals defenders didn't even celebrate with Buddy because it was so criminal.
It's like our defense has been put through the woodshed this year.
Yes.
And we have a chance to score not only one, but 2 times on defense. And you do that literally at the half-yard line. Like, again, I don't know if he was trying to move the ball, because it was weird from the replay. It looks like he was just trying to maybe move the ball. And he was maybe thinking about what a celebration was going to be.
Yeah.
But again, finish the drill first, then celebrate.
If you do something stupid in hockey, they put you in the penalty box. You and I talked about that, or I talked about this. You listened briefly. Yeah. They have drunk tanks in all these stadiums for fans that fight.
Yeah.
How about we put a small penalty box, jail box, like under the bleachers, and have a live feed camera that pops up in the bottom corner?
You got to go sit in.
If you do any of these ludicrous, stupid, dumb things that cost you,
like a shame chain instead of a touchdown chain.
In Jonathan Taylor's case, a season is on the line, and you do something
literally
like
that could have cost him the season.
Put him in the little drunk tank, and I want to see a little GoPro footage of what's going on in there emotionally.
It does blow my mind though that everyone knows, like everyone's seen one highlight one way or the other, and yet it still happens. They're like,
I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah, like people
are going to be that guy
in popularity, unfortunately. All right, Kyle, what's your deep dive?
My deep dive is these offensive coordinators that are obviously amazing and beautifully designed playbooks, and Jared Goff throwing for 5 touchdowns a game, 18 for 18, Jared Goff shredding the defense. That stuff doesn't happen without a great offensive coordinator. Yeah. The question and the part of the deep dive that I want to talk about is offensive coordinator to head coach, and the pipeline that's available right now, who we think will have the best career as a head coach moving forward. There's a number of names here that are at the top of my mind. Liam Cohen,
correct,
Ben Johnson, all these guys that are potential Chicago Bears head coaches. We've got a quarterback there that needs development.
Projecting right now.
I am a little bit, but it's my deep dive, and I'm going to take it situation by situation. Okay. And I'll start with a guy like Joe Brady, who has been fabulous. And, it's a chicken and the egg conversation in all of these situations. Can you replicate Josh Allen? Do you have do you have leaders in the room like they do in Buffalo in terms of the coaching staff? You think about Detroit. Dan Campbell is like a coach, perennial coach of the year candidate now, and he's got a fabulous culture. But Aaron Glenn's the defensive coordinator. Yep. Everybody loves Aaron Glenn, the way they play defense, the way they can scheme up blitzes, the effort that they play with, the things that they've had to overcome from a health standpoint. Ben Johnson on the offensive side of the ball. You have a world-class offensive line. You've got 2, now 1 running backs. You've got some receivers. You've got a dominant tight end. You've got a quarterback who's cerebral enough and understands not only the what, but the why. My question is, when they transition from offensive coordinator to head coach, or Liam Cohen, for example, Baker Mayfield, offensive line studs. You've got Mike Evans. You've got a number of backs that can catch and run the football that are playing above their slot in the draft or whatever it is you want to value these guys at. My question is, when they become from offensive coordinator to head coach, does it diminish their product as the offensive genius that they are with everything that's on their plate? Like, if Ben Johnson becomes the head coach, is he still Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator that we've loved so far? And I liken it to this. Kate and I took a trip to a town in California called Halesburg. I can't spell it, but it's somewhere near Sonoma Valley, Sonoma Coast, Napa Valley. Correct. It's one of those like wine and cheese type joints. There is a Michelin star restaurant there called Single Thread. Ooh. Best meal I've ever had. It was one of those small plate for 100 small plates until you can't eat anymore. And everything that comes out there, you've never seen before. You've never smelled anything like it, tasted anything like it. The flavor profiles are so advanced. It's a lot like watching this Lions offense. You know what I'm saying? But my question, and we never met the chef.
Really?
They talked about the chef. Every server that came over talked about the chef a million times.
That's weird. Michelin star. He usually always comes.
But hear me out. If the chef's job was to cook, design, plate, all this stuff, and go out there and talk about his stuff and have all this other stuff on his plate, if he had to greet guests at the front door and seat them and figure out who's got to work tonight and scheduling, does that diminish his product? Is it less of a Michelin star restaurant? And that's what my concerns are with these offensive geniuses. And I know we've seen it before, guys transitioning from OC to head coach. Your boy in Green Bay is fantastic. There's a number of these guys out there. Sean McVay is probably the top of the list. Is this crop similar to the names that I just named? And what are your concerns with an offensive coordinator becoming a head coach?
When I liken it to this, that crop that you're talking about all came from the Shanahan. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to put that to the side. When you talk about a Kyle Shanahan, a Mike McDaniel, you talk about a Matt LaFleur, like those all came from the Shanahan tree. You can even throw Raheem Morris technically in there as well. So like that was just a special staff of individuals that were able to work under one of the greatest coaches that we've seen, right? Now, your question about Ben Johnson, because he's had an opportunity the last couple years to take jobs, and people wondered, is it because his setup is so perfect in Detroit is the reason he hasn't taken the job? Because it would essentially be like him starting over in regards to implementing his offense and then not having the subsequent players that he has with Detroit. When you talk about the offensive line,
you can't bring that with you.
Yeah, you talk about the two-headed monster in the backfield. When you talk about having the sun god at receiver, like if you're going somewhere, it's because that team probably isn't good, right? And it doesn't mean they don't have talent, but they're not going to have the talent that Detroit has. So, like, that's always a question. I liken it also to this, like when interim coordinators or defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators get jobs, you always kind of see a regression on their side of the ball. Case in point, Jeff Ulbrich. Yep. That was a top 5 defense when he was just a D coordinator. And it's hard to make that transition, especially in season. Now, in the off season, right, you get the OTAs, you get training camp, you get preseason games. So that helps you kind of work through some of those.
Figure out what like
delegation. Correct. As far as delegating, as far as if I'm still going to call the plays, who do I trust enough in regards to the special teams? Can I keep my hands off of that? Do I need to be all involved in that? On the offense, like I trust my coordinators, but how involved do I need to be? And I'll be honest, like I was with Kyle Shanahan his first year in San Fran. Kyle Shanahan delegates the defense to the defensive coordinators. Yep. He doesn't do anything over there. Like he has, and again, people can look at that as a good thing or a bad thing.
Visibility, but he's not putting his finger.
Exactly. When you see him, when the defense is up, what is he over there doing? iPad.
Yep.
Going over stuff. And I think for defensive coordinators, they don't get that same type of love or people attack them more when the offense isn't doing well because people will say, you're a head coach, but how many head coaches do we see that are play callers still, like literally delegate the defense to the defensive coordinators and trust them?
Yeah.
Like it happens all the time. So it's like, it's not created equal. But getting back to your point, Liam Cohen, I think, would be fine, right? Because when you talk about them having a good young offensive line, you talk about Mike Evans, who missed the majority of the season, right? Chris Godwin has missed the majority of the season. He's been able to pivot and figure out his personnel group. He knows he has 3 good running backs. So I'm going to put 2 backs out there at one time and be able to use the personnel I have. So right there, that lets me know he can adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
He can adjust, which, again, I think the biggest question we also have to ask is, just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach, because you have to be a leader of men.
Bro.
So, like, that's the first and foremost thing.
Mark Trestman was the guy who drafted me in Chicago. And if you sat in a team meeting with Mark Trestman and he was leading the meeting, you would say, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
But then the team meeting ends, you go to the offensive room and you're like,
genius.
That's why we hired him. And every week you're putting up 35 points and you're like, okay, so I have seen these coordinators become head coaches but stay coordinators. And to your point, they allow the defensive side of the ball to handle their business. We had a historically bad defense in the years Mark Trestman was there. He got fired as a result of team production because he was the head coach. But our offense was never the issue. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
That's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, exactly. So like that's the thing you have to ask yourself. Just because a guy is a genius X's and O's wise doesn't mean he can lead 53 men. Right, essentially, because all those guys have to trust in what you're saying and what you're preaching, right, to be able to follow what you're saying and believe it, right? So just because you're good in the X's and O's, but that's why I think Liam Cohen will be good, just because he's been able to adjust. And people question that when Dave Canellis left, what Baker Mayfield are we going to see? And we're seeing another Pro Bowl type Baker Mayfield. And that proves that Liam Cohen is again.
Or that Baker is just him.
It could be that too. But I liken it too that he was under the McVay tree as well. Right. Liam Cohen was in with the Rams, but he was a Kentucky offensive coordinator, but he spent time with Sean McVay as well. So I think also the tree you come from under actually can benefit or hurt you when it comes to realizing, is this guy a good head coach or is he just a coordinator only?
I think I've thought about this kind of dichotomy a lot between offense and defense. I think it starts at the fact that offense and defense are fundamentally different, and that offense like dictates terms. And so for the defense perspective, something I've said a lot, that there's no magic defense. You just have to be able to have answers for everything. Like there's cover 3, cover 4, this coverage versus that. It's like, there's
Brian Flores might beg to differ.
No, but it's like, it's getting everyone on the same page. That's what's the fundamental problem of defensive football, is being able to get everyone on the same page. So it's fundamentally coaching. It is being able to get 11 guys to act as one. That is what matters the most for a defensive coordinator, is that ability. And then obviously like being able to then teach why and what they're doing helps a ton as well. But it's like that is the difference. Whereas on the offensive side of the ball, there kind of are magic plays. There are plays that work a lot better than others. Yes, getting guys on the same page helps, but knowing that like if I motion from here, motion a guy to a trip set, and they usually react with this, that I get this coverage and then I get a one-on-one with Jamar Chase. It's like knowing that stuff, knowing the X's and O's to a deep, deep degree, and being able to be creative in that realm can make you a really, really successful offense coordinator without needing to communicate why it works. You just tell them to do it. They don't. The quarterback might need to know a little bit why, but still, it sees an open guy, he hits them. So they don't need to necessarily have that command over the locker room. They need to have the creative ingenuity of being able to create new plays to beat rules of a defense. And so it's a fundamentally different task at hand, and that's why you get fundamentally different people, I think, attracted to both sides of the ball. Whereas defense side of the ball, there's kind of like that meme of, I don't know if you guys have seen it, where it's like one's Albert Einstein is the defensive coordinator, and
the black and white photo type thing.
Yeah, and then the offense coordinator is Ken from the Barbie movie.
Yeah,
it's like, that's like Cliff Kingsbury. It's like that's how you get, because you have to have seen a lot of the game to call defense and know a lot of just like how men and you have operate and have that ability to command and the respect to lead a defensive side. Whereas on the offensive side, You just need to have that creativity. That works.
Vic Fangio, Matt Nagy, 2018.
So why on the offense side, a lot of times there's a number of times, and you saw with Mark Trestman, when an offensive guy gets promoted, he never necessarily had to be a coach. He never had to lead men. And I think you're kind of seeing that a little bit with Mike McDaniel in Miami as well, that like when things go hard, it's like he doesn't really have answers because he just has the X's and O's to lean back on. He doesn't have necessarily the coaching pedigree to lean back on. So when you're looking for a head coach, it's no OC versus DC in my mind. Like, which one do you want? You want the guy who can command. Like, you want the guy who can implement 53 guys, get them all on the same page consistently, not have too high highs, not have too low lows, just keep you consistent. But if you have an OC that can do that, both, because OCs usually trend towards obviously the more like cerebral, being creative, having new play calls. That's the ideal, right? The Andy Reid, the Kyle Shanahan, the Sean McVay, those guys, year in and year out, if you can consistently be ahead of the curve on the offensive side of the ball and have that at the head coaching position, that's the dream, in my opinion. Those are the guys that, but obviously then we saw Belichick did that on the defense side of the football, be consistently ahead of the curve on that. Some guys can. It's just more difficult too on that side.
Feels like these offensive coaches are like DJs and they have to make brand new sets. And the defense is just the group of people in front of the DJ that's figuring out how to dance to each of these songs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more of a reactionary method.
Yes.
And the offensive side of the ball is like, we have to be creative. We have to be innovative. And some of these guys just wake up in the morning and they just piss innovation. That's who I want to get for my next head coach. If I had to put a gun to your head and say, because who's going to be the best one out of this bunch in the head coaching realm? Because
innovation on the football field is not limited to just the offensive side of the ball. Like to scheme good offense, you have to know the defense like inside out too. You have to know the entire game,
why,
how it all
the
works.
Why of it.
What was the question?
Who's going to be the best head coach out of these OCs?
So that's the thing. That's like the worry about Ben Johnson. Is that he's like actively rejected that role. And
as I'm saying, so like why? If you're not willing to take on the challenge a couple of years ago, what's going to change this year, right? It's again, we talked about it earlier. Is it because you know you're not going to have the talent that you have in Detroit? Again, he is a mad scientist genius when it comes to diagraphing plays and being very creative on the offensive side of the ball. But, you know, there was rumors he could have potentially went to Jacksonville a few years ago, a couple other spots. It's like, why didn't you do that? Because we've learned in the NFL, things can turn quickly on you. You may not get another opportunity. Byron Leftwich was a guy that was a hot name.
Yep.
Decided not to take the job in Jacksonville, and now look at him now. He's not going to get an opportunity to be a head coach most likely. So it's just interesting when you look at Ben Johnson. But to answer your question, and again, this is not me being biased because I'm a defensive guy. I think Brian Flores and Aaron Glenn, to me, when you talk about like leaders of men, and I know Mike says there's not like a slew of guys that are head coaches that actually still call defense of plays. With those two guys would probably be those type of guys that would still do it. We see D'Amico Ryans having a lot of success with it. And it's crazy because last year Houston kind of leaned on their offense, but this year it's definitely leaning on its defense. And D'Amico Ryans has still been able to have that defense play at a high level this year while being the head coach and still calling plays. But when you look at Aaron Glenn, an ex-player who's been in the locker room, who knows what it takes to play at the highest level, former Pro Bowl guy at cornerback, what he's been able to do, to your point, with that defense this year before the slew of injuries happened, is have them as a top 5 defense, right? And even when guys were getting dinged up here and there, he still had them playing adequate football. Now, it's tough to overcome when, like, literally you've been dinged at every level on defense. You talk about Colin Davis, Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, Anzalone, Rodriguez. Like, those are 5 starters. Those aren't just guys.
Dudes.
And those are dudes. And yet, like, he's been able to keep it afloat. Now, it all kind of came crashing down last week, but then Josh Allen and the offense had a lot to do with that as well. So I think Aaron Glenn and then Brian Flores, we know, with the suit with the NFL and, him and Tua's relationship.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. But when you hear the Minnesota Viking players talk about him,
they seem to love him.
They love him.
They went to the podium with him. Like,
you know what I'm saying? It was Harrison Phillips, I believe.
They were like, this is our guy right here.
Yeah, and I think Brian Flores has learned a lot. The thing is, when you come from that Belichick tree, it's almost like, I don't know what it is. It's like a disease where the guys under Belichick try to like outdo him in regards to the way that he coached. And I think Brian Flores learned a lot from that experience in Miami. And you can just tell by how humbling he was talking about the situation with Tua. And then to your point, the players having his back at Minnesota says a lot about how he's grown in regards to coaching. So I think he would be an amazing coach as well. And then I talked about, I think Liam Cohen, like I love Ben Johnson, but to Mike's point, a little nervous that you turned down a job like 2 years in a row.
Well, he's waiting for Cincinnati, ain't he?
I mean, is it that? Is he waiting?
Can you imagine?
Supposedly he likes Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence too. That's a rumor.
Well, I promise you, if he likes Trevor Lawrence, he's gonna love Joe Burrow.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Again, we talked about, me and Mike have talked about this before. I don't think Zach Taylor's going anywhere because he's the offensive minded coach, and that's not the side of the ball that's bad.
Yeah.
Which I get. I hate how the goalpost gets moved in that regards, but that's another conversation.
Offensive coach is supposed
100%.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, 100%.
It's an offensive league, Jay.
I get that, but yet you have a prolific offense, and yet you're not in the playoff race right now because of your defense.
Like the most prolific offense.
Yeah, literally. So
I do feel like NFL owners are horrible at evaluating how people perform versus expectations.
Yeah.
You know, like, especially like their side of the football. It's like when you have, and that's why they keep hiring every OC that coached Aaron Rodgers, every OC that coached Patrick Mahomes. It's like,
good luck.
They were going to be good. You know, like what did they do above expectations?
Like those guys are dudes. They were going to have success regardless. Like,
so, but then pass on guys who, you know, who are objectively, I mean, you just look at what Brian Flores is working with in Minnesota. You look at that defense before the season. What would you have pegged them as?
Middle
average?
Of the road.
Yeah. I was not even probably like a little bit below average.
Exactly.
And even what he did last year with less than what he has this year. So it's like, we talk about getting the max out of the talent that's on the roster and leading those guys. And what I love about him is he knows what everybody's skill set is. He kind of reminds me of Rex a lot in regards to how he coaches defense. He knows everybody has a skill set, and he's going to put you in position so your skill set can flourish.
Yeah.
He's not going to tell you to do something he knows you can't do well.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about what I've seen from that Minnesota Vikings defense.
Well, and it's just good to go back to when he was with Miami too. I mean, they had a great defense this final year with objectively not great talent.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, Ogba, who was a really good pro, and then Shaq Lawson, both of those guys like leading them in sacks.
That's like your D-line. Like, those guys go anywhere else, and you're begging for more defensive line help. That was just not the most talented unit, and you got the most out of them. Because it's like, all right, my deep dive, a little different. And I'm more leaning on you guys for this one.
I've been here.
Because I have. What's up with how is what is the vibe like
about this?
And do you guys have any good stories about end of season locker rooms when it's just like season's over? You got 3 or 4 games left.
When the sky starts falling?
You're officially eliminated.
The off-season plans look like, bro.
Dude. That's if we're even talking at that point in the season.
You might be mad at everybody.
You know, I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
You go into every season with high hopes.
Correct.
I mean, obviously there's a handful of teams that know that they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. But then everybody else is like, we have a chance to get to the dance. And every coach I've ever had said, if you get to the dance, you have a chance.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Anybody can beat anybody. Well, there's been a number of teams I've been on where that's just not the case. And immediately you start to look around and you start to gauge effort, interest, and commitment of the guys in the locker room. Not only the players, but you know, you can see it in the coaches' faces, the assistant coaches, the quality control coaches are the first ones to go. The guys who have to print the note cards for the blitzes.
Yeah, for scout team.
The guys who draw up the blocking. You know, sometimes there's shit.
All right, here's the card.
Week 15, if we're already eliminated, you start seeing some really shitty cards.
The energy's not there.
And then the head coach gets pissed at the quality control, and then he blames a player, and then it's a bad
trickle-down effect.
Also, take a look at the injury reports.
That's a telltale.
Take a look at the injury reports for some of these teams that are out of contention.
Oh my God.
They are lengthy.
They
are cloudy at best in terms of what's going on with the guy.
Love back.
There's a lot of hamstrings. There's a lot of general soreness on there. Guys are making business decisions at this point in the season. Now, the elite guys, and I've been around a number of them, they find a way to trap themselves in that football hallway, keep their blinders on, and they just play their nuts off. And those are the best guys. And there's not many of them.
Correct.
But the ones that you have, you want to hold on to those guys. And if you're a young player, direct your gaze towards them because they will take you to the promised land. And my issue as a young player was I was more often than not probably checked out at the end of the season and dealing with a lot of injuries, real ones.
Not
but it's tough. It's tough to maintain that level of commitment, and you see things start to slip. You show up to the building a little bit later. You're closer to the start of team meeting. Maybe that lift that you did on Wednesdays with the guy from the D line. Sometimes the D lineman and the O lineman, they like to lift together.
We all have a certain time we go into the weight room.
You start to get a dwindling number of people that show up for that.
Man, that's tough.
And then
Friday lift.
The pump starts to go away. Start to see chicken arms.
Like, where's everybody at?
It's not good, Mike. It's really not good. And then obviously you start thinking about who's going to be our next guy, or are you even going to be here, or you're really expensive. I wonder if you're out of here. That's the way that these conversations
start counting the cap numbers.
Yeah. Get out of my pockets, bro.
It's so interesting, right? Because I was undrafted free agent. I was blessed to play 10 years. So, like, anytime I had an opportunity to play, I laid it on the line. Now, from a mentality standpoint, where there are times where I knew we were out and it was like 5 weeks to go, I might send my car like a week or two early.
Yep.
From that standpoint, yeah. But anytime we were on the field, I was locked in. I was locked in on the practice field. I was locked in the game time. But to your point, there is times like when guys, know they're out of the playoff contention the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's like, if we were in it and I have a sore hamstring, I might push through it, but not right now. Yeah. And then you also get players that are actually kind of nervous, right? Because if your head coach does get fired and say he came from a place where you were at before, he brought you in, now you start looking around and like, am I going to be here next year? Am I going to like the new system that we're bringing in here too? Does it fit my skill set? What are their plans for me in the future, especially if you still got a year or two left on your deal? And then 2, like you said, my cap number. Do they think I'm dead weight? Do they get rid of me? So all those go through your head. So it's just like, I would warn everybody, like, again, there are certain tiers in the NFL. Certain guys are going to get cut no matter what, right? But if you're in that middle tier where you could potentially be a cap cut, you better lay it on the line.
Go either way.
Yeah, you can go either way. You better lay it on the line these last couple of weeks, because best believe if it's a new head coach, new GM, they're going to watch that film and see what you did at the end of the season. Did you quit on your brothers and your teammates, or did you go and lay it on the line even though you knew you weren't going to the playoffs?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question because it's such an interesting just part of the season when it's such a physical game. You can make a play at this point in time that could end your next season. Like
correct. And that's another
ACL,
thing
whatever.
Could easily get rolled up on in week 17.
And then that goes through next August, next September, and it's like
nightmare.
And that's so say you've had a big year, right? But you're out of playoff contention. It's week 17, 18, and ankle's a little sore. I've seen guys, I'm about to get paid.
Yep.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
Shut it down. And again, I don't fault anybody for what they're doing. It's technically, like you said, it's a business decision, right? Because like you said, Mike, any play, and I always tell people this, if you're out on that field, you better be going full speed. Because when you don't, that's usually when you get hurt. Or when you're thinking about getting hurt, that's usually when you get hurt.
We were like week 11 playing against the Jets. It was 2019. It was the year after the double doink. And we were playing the Jets, and I think it was 2019. And I was out there, might have been 2018. Yeah, it was 2018 because I got to 350 pounds after this. We were in 4 minute against
350, bro?
353 without pads.
Oh, my goodness. Eating good, huh?
Yeah, eating good in the neighborhood. and not walking around the block
at all.
We were playing the Jets. It was 4 minute mode. Yeah. And
you guys were
Bobby Massey was our right tackle, and we were like, our double teams were awesome. Like, I knew that we could get a single every time we hit our backside B. Right. And we're, again, and we ran that thing down. Boom, 6 minutes off it was like that Philly drive, 8 minutes off the clock.
18 play drive.
It wasn't 18. It was probably like 13 or something like that. And we got to like the 30-yard line on the other side, and we made one more run. And I mean, me and Bobby rolled the 3 technique out, dumped him on the ground. And right when I went to get up, somebody else stopped. I'm not going to name any names. One of our tight ends stopped blocking, and the defensive end was pissed, and he gave him that extra push. He landed right on my leg, broke my foot, twisted it around, got rolled up on, and I missed 8 games because of that. And to your point, when you're out there and you're going half speed and you're not committed to being involved,
risk, man.
You put yourself and others at risk, and you never know the risk that runs you. And I'll tell you, I mean, shit like that happens far too often in the NFL. And if you go harder, less will happen, honestly.
I think I've never actually been hurt going full. Actually, that's a lie. I got chop blocked by Chris Knee, and that's when I hurt my ankle. And this is when it was illegal on the backside. Like,
Slice
and it's
and
crazy.
dice.
I had been doing a lot of film studies, so I knew when they checked the play what their snap count was. So I jumped the crap out of the snap count. And this wily vet,
And you were
Chris
high on
Knee,
him?
oh God! So I was on the nose. I was one technique on the center. I think it was Sean O'Hara was the center, and I knew what the snap count was. So I took off, and boy, next thing I knew, feet were up in the air. Stu cut me. That was the only time I got hurt going full speed. Anytime else I got banged up, to your point, I was going full speed. Somebody wasn't, and somebody got finished around me.
And then the effect of that down the road is now I'm the guy who's blocking after I recover physically.
Oh, all the way through.
And I'm like, well,
but then you're nervous, right?
You start looking behind you. The minute you start looking behind you, man.
Yeah, that's when you get hurt again.
You got to lock back into that commitment of the only way I'm going to get out of harm's way is to dominate my block. And Harry Heastand always, because when Harry Heastand became the O-line coach, probably a GOAT. One of the GOATs, definitely a Mount Rushmore offensive line coach in college and the NFL. You know, he was knuckles up when you're blocking. You know, like I remember the first day he came on the job, he goes, come with me to this doorway. He goes, Kyle, I noticed that you grab guys like this a lot. You try to wrench them. He goes, if I slam this door in your face, and then he slammed the door at me, and I went, and I stopped the door, and he goes, look at your knuckles. They're up. He's like, that's how we're going to block this year. And he's like, if you're pushing a shopping cart, do you hold it like this, or do you push it like, if I told you to push it as fast as you could, you put your hands like this. If a truck is rolling backwards at you at 0.5 miles an hour, how are you going to stop it? Like this or like this? So, you know what I'm saying? He's a great coach in that regard. Make things simple and make it applicable. But he always said, I know you've dealt with a lot of injuries, getting rolled up on and stuff like that. And I understand the natural inclination to look behind you when you're blocking. But I can tell you the only way you can get out of harm's way is to kick that guy's ass and get him out of your own zip code. And I love Harry for that. And I wish I listened more when he was because sure enough, it happened again.
All right. That's our deep dive segment. We're going to take a quick break after that. Going to get to your mailbag questions.
Baby, we are gonna start a fire.
From world-renowned clubs
simply devastating
to worldwide stars,
Wrexham have done it. This incredible ride continues.
The English Football League on CBS Sports Network, and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
Here.
Thank you, Mike.
We're having technical difficulties with the rain going on outside.
There's a flood in the parking lot that's causing Leger's car to go alarm mode.
Don't say that.
Hey, we're going to be okay.
All right, we'll make the mailbag section quick so you can attend to it.
If you got to go get that, go get it.
That should be good.
All right.
Hopefully.
First question here comes from 5-star review from Kopi5. He asks, I have an idea for QBs or anyone else with the ball to be able to give themselves up on a play. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I love this. Why not just give the fair catch signal?
Did bring this up.
There is no situation where a ball carrier would ever wave their hand above their head, and it is an immediate and obvious signal that is already in the game. I think you could legislate that the nearest defender must be 3 to 5 yards away to be flagged for contact. It allows for a ball carrier to clearly signal they've given themselves up while still allowing them to brace for incidental contact from an athletic position instead of a compromised position of a slide or a dive. It also be very institute a penalty for a fake wave where they wave but don't go above shoulder level like they've done on punt returns in the past. Keep up the great work, guys. I love that, actually. And I feel like an idiot because I thought about this for a while and didn't think of that when it's literally already in the game.
Just raise your hand.
That's already what we say to people who are coming down on punt returns. Now, there's still guys that get hit, but it's more they get hit because I think they don't see the signal because they're not in the middle. But most times, if you are in the middle of a game, someone's running at you and your hand goes up, I mean, like that seems like it'd be pretty evident not to hit. And then it would leave the quarterback, mainly it'd be quarterbacks, in a position where should the defender still launch, it's like, well, then you can kind of get out of the way because you're on your feet and you're still on balance. I kind of like it.
Who's the first receiver that would use it? We're going to name it on the 3 count. 1, 2, 3. Tyler Lockett.
I'm trying to say, yeah, he would definitely use it.
Oh, I love that. That means
he gets down
Tyler Lockett, smart, and he owns up to why he does it. He's like, look, I'm gonna get my yards and get
I'm
down.
170, bro.
Yeah, honestly, there's a reason Tyler Lockett's been doing it for so long because he's a smart dude. That was funny.
That's great. But
I like this rule. He's hired. Roger Goodell's calling him right now. He's hired.
Love it. Kopi 5.
That's great.
I don't see the downside. I mean, in terms of versus sliding, it's just you're not as vulnerable.
Yeah, your head's not going towards the earth.
And yeah, exactly. And the places you want to
You're
not be
getting
vulnerable.
fulcrumed by a planet. I like it.
I do wonder, as a defender, would it be easier to notice a hand going up and stopping?
It depends, man. Sometimes all you see is red when you're rushing the passer.
I know that feeling.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I didn't know what I thought he was trying to make a move.
Well, but I feel only after
Juju's
like
gonna be
open
out there
field.
You got to name that thing.
That was my name. That was my no.
You got to name that thing.
Oh, okay. I had to get it in.
All right, next question comes from Mr. Ed 315. He says, which NFL teams, coaches, and front office personnel are richly deserving of lumps of coal from Santa this holiday season?
You go ahead, bud.
Tis the season, call them out. I nominated one for each of these. The team that I think deserves a lump of coal is the New York Jets. Sorry, okay, but
I'm not against that.
From the owner down, I honestly think the guy who comes out smelling the best from this is Robert Saleh.
I've been trying to tell you, I've been saying that for the longest.
Yeah,
like,
true.
hiring him made no sense.
So yeah,
The Packers have been on a heater since he showed up.
I think that
he played really well.
Oh,
Goodness gracious.
they deserve a lump of coal from the top down again. Coach, to me, Lou Anarumo, I gassed him up when he was doing so well for those back-to-back championship games. This is unacceptable. I don't care that your personnel isn't what you wanted.
Thank you.
This is truly unacceptable. We're getting notes in here.
Yeah, dude. What a day we have.
Okay.
All good?
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody's safe in the parking lot.
His car's alive. But Lou Anarumo, just like, it can't go that bad. You can't be the reason why you don't make the playoffs when you have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Quarterback who's going to win the yardage and touchdown title. First player to do that since Tom Brady in 2021. And I think they won the Super Bowl.
Do you send
the year after they won the Super Bowl?
Because clearly Anarumo, they're going to go get his thumbs. They're going to get him out of there.
He's gone.
Are they going to send an Italian guy to do this? Is it going to be an Italian on Italian hit there?
Interesting to see who they actually bring in as D coordinator there. I get.
Well,
not,
they need some
not saying
defensive
that
players too.
Is going to be. Oh,
Get Trey some help.
Me and Mike broke this down the other day. They've been abysmal.
Get Trey some help.
The last
So bad.
It's Dick Tobin. What's his name? Dick Tobin?
Duke Tobin.
Duke Tobin.
Duke Tobin. Yeah.
Get him out of there.
Ooh, he's been really bad in the draft the last couple.
Come
years.
on.
Yes.
When you drive Burrow and Chase, you're not probably going to.
Yeah, but that's kind of like a no-brainer.
They didn't fire him when they went so south.
It's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Like
I mean, T. Higgins too.
Well, if we're going to say longevity is security, then I can't say anything bad about the Bears.
Well, it's Cincinnati. It's a different. They're like the Bears, but cheaper somehow.
Jeez. Okay, so teams, coaches, and front office.
My front office was Trent Baalke. The Jags, just unbelievable what he did to a franchise that 2 years ago should have been on a trajectory to like AFC Championship game.
Correct.
Jerry Jones. They should put sugar or salt in his what ruins gas tanks in his yacht. They should put some.
Yeah, sugar is the thing.
Yeah, sugar. Put it in there. That's my answer. I'm not going to call out the Bears today.
All right, next question comes from MBeal13 on X. He says, will the Commanders win 2 of their last 3 to secure a playoff spot? They play Philly, they play Atlanta.
They're going to win 2 of their last 3.
They don't even necessarily need to win 2 of them.
I think they just got to win 1.
They just got to win 1.
Yeah.
They're going to lose to Atlanta. They're going to win on Sunday Night Football, and they're going to beat
so you think they're beating Philly?
No, they're going to lose to Philly. Sorry, and they're going to beat Atlanta.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
I picked Philly on the show
Is that
yesterday.
Atlanta game at Atlanta? No, it's not the Commanders, I think.
It's Sunday Night Football. Either way,
Michael Penix though.
Jaden Daniels does better in primetime, in my opinion.
Michael Penix.
I think there's Daniels. That's actually going to be a great game.
It's going to be a really good game. I can't wait for that game.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from MBM87 Matthias. There we go. What was your position on Joey Porter coming out of PSU? He is frustrating because his mentality and frame should suggest he should be a very physical corner, yet he lacks strength and gets bullied at the point of contact. I think he's good, but not sure if he's number 1. What say you? I was very encouraged by his rookie year, and coming out, I was higher on him than where he went. I believe he went 32nd. He was your pick, the Bears pick from the whatever trade.
Oh,
Chase Claypool
he was a trade.
Chase Claypool trade pick.
Claypool, great move.
So I had him like higher than that. I didn't have him higher than like Christian Gonzalez. I had him higher than Emmanuel Forbes. I thought he was a first round player because he is 34-inch arms.
Yeah.
It was strong in college. You watched him against the Ohio State wide receiver.
Man, that was teach tape.
And he just, locked up Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. He put him in a blanket at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, blender.
So I thought he should have been. I don't know what happened from year 1 to year 2, because year 1 was encouraging for a rookie. But he is now, since he entered the starting lineup for the Pittsburgh Steelers, averaged more than a penalty a game.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. It's 15 penalties this year, 5 more than any other corner.
It's the George Pickens effect. He has to go against George Pickens in practice all the time.
It might be.
Dude, I'm telling you, when you are a dominant player, if you're a good player and you end up having another really great player coming in, there's one of 2 ways this thing can go. It's either you get shot mentally,
for sure,
or you become an absolute Navy SEAL on the football field.
Like what Antonio Brown used to do for the corners at training camp.
That shit matters. And I've seen clips of George Pickens and Joey Porter going at it, and Pickens will moss him, and then he'll hand him the football.
Yeah, he will.
I'm like, that has an effect on people. I don't know. Mike is the authority here.
It honestly might be because his drop off this year has been head scratching. He was very good as a rookie. It really was just if he can cut down the penalties. Now he obviously hasn't.
But that's the thing. He's always, even at Penn State, he was always handsy. So that was the thing. And I think he hasn't really, I would say, changed the way he's played in regards to how the league is calling some of these handsy DPIs or holding calls, and it's affected him this year. And I think also, like you said, Mike, it was so encouraging what he did last year. I think there was a lot of hype, in the offseason about him and him being a true number 1 corner, that sometimes it's hard to live up to that expectation. And now
people know.
Yeah, and now you're reeling, right? Because now you're trying to live up to that bill, right? So he's got to be able to change his game a little bit in regards to being so handsy at the line of scrimmage. And I know Dante Jackson went down. We'll see his health status this week. That could be big, because Pittsburgh has a gauntlet of a schedule. Now they're already in, but they have a gauntlet.
And they ain't healthy.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to be also like a true shutdown. He's more of like a boomer bust press guy, where he'll eliminate enough routes at the line of scrimmage that you can't consistently look his way, but he will get beat on a number of occasions.
You'll get your opportunities.
All right, next question comes from Bongo. Is the gap between Patrick Surtain and the next best corner, or even DB, the biggest in the league across positions? If not, what other ones would you consider?
That's a really good question.
Stingley, you would have to consider.
Stingley's up there right now.
Stingley is playing out of this world right now. His ball skills are second to none in the league right now. Like, again, I still don't understand why quarterbacks continue to throw the ball up in his direction, because he's more than likely going to come down with. I mean, perfect example is how he closed the game out versus Miami. Like, Tyreek Hill should have come down with that football, but he ripped it away from him at the top of the route. So it's just like his ball skills are second to none. I will say Patrick Surtain is probably CB1 this year, but Stingley, I would say, I don't think the gap is as big as Bongo thinks it is.
Are all 3 of the last names we've mentioned between those defensive secondary players, are they all kids of players?
Ooh, that's a good question. They are.
Surtain. Who was the other one?
And Porter.
Porter. Yeah. Jeez.
That's crazy.
Great driven league. Wow. I think Fred Warner at linebacker.
Jamar Chase.
Even if he probably hasn't been as hot as he was early in the season, I think Fred Warner still, compared to the next best linebacker, might be the biggest.
Yeah.
Might be the next best linebacker.
I'm thinking in terms of receivers, Jamar Chase.
Justin Jefferson?
Bro, Jamar Chase. Like,
he's got Joe Burrow.
He's got
you can't disrespect.
I do think Chase right now is probably one, but it's also tight. Like it's not. But it's not
the certain thing is probably
big.
Yeah,
this is a great question.
I like this. It has us going down a rabbit hole. I like it.
I'm thinking about rushers.
I'm thinking about linebackers now.
Linemen.
Because
who would be number 2 at linebackers?
Yeah,
I do think it's Fred Warner, who's like true.
I mean, I would say last year would have been Roquan, but this year that's not the case.
Man, oh man. This is like a sit down for an hour in a room and think about it and write some stuff down and come back in type question.
Get a whiteboard up and just start.
Bongo, Brad Garden.
That's a good one.
Dang, I'm stumped right now.
I'm just bullish on Jamar Chase.
No, 100. What he's done this year, like he's literally about to be the 5th player since the 1970 merger to win the Triple Crown.
Justin Jefferson's amazing.
That's elite space he's about to be in.
I've often said that Justin Jefferson is probably the most likable superstar in the National Football League.
Sure.
Like, you can't say one bad thing about Justin Jefferson.
See, I like George Pickens, so
Yeah, I know you
he's
do.
the most likable.
You're the anti-hero.
Yes.
George Pickens is Hancock. Like he wakes up in a bus on a mountain somewhere, and he looks at his phone. He's like, "Shit, more people."
That's a great city is Hancock.
That's amazing.
He's Hancock.
That's amazing.
Throws a whale off the beach and kills a boat.
Literally, you have the whole ocean, and you hit this sailboat out here.
Okay.
All right, next question comes from Parking Grandma. Do you think college football has to return to making players sit out 1 year if they transfer?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we do it like you get one free pass?
So that's always been my rule. You get one free transfer,
and then,
just because family issues.
You were 17 when you made this college.
Yeah,
grown up, gained some perspective.
Exactly. So you get one free transfer, and then after that, you should have to sit out a year.
And like I'm on Instagram last night scrolling through, and I see one of these accounts showing Quinn Ewers. He's talking about this team offered him $13 million.
Yeah, transfer, right?
And I'm like, this is just free agency every year for these guys.
Transfers for a second time.
It's every
third
semester.
school.
It's the highest bidder.
Every semester. It's not once a year. It's every semester.
You get every semester.
It's brutal.
Now they're talking about,
and some people do that.
Yes, you can literally transfer like before the spring ball.
So I'm a quarterback. $26 million if 13 is the number each semester.
And some people have to do it out of necessity because they're just like they show up, they don't go to class for a year, and they're obviously the next year they'd be academic ineligible, and so they have to go somewhere else that will make them eligible. It's like insane.
Just go to Saddleback College in South Orange County and tell Coach Crab I sent you, and go win yourself a California State championship. And I promise you, if you're good enough, you'll end up in the National Football League. All right.
All right. Next,
go help those guys.
And final question comes from Darren, and I love this one because it is actually an interesting thought experiment. Is college football a threat to the NFL? They're playing the players. They have GMs. They don't have a salary cap. What's to prevent them from taking the next step? Next step being unlimited eligibility. Guys just don't have to.
That would be insane. Why even call it college? Just call it semi-pro.
Because but it could if they do. We have Cam Rising on year 8 now that he's going into his same recruit.
I was so glad that's why Alan Bowman decided that he was going to leave. I'm like,
the Oklahoma State guy.
Yeah, it's like, dude, what are we doing here? Like,
he's in his 18th year of school.
The thing that I hate about this is that it's really hurting the development of players that eventually will be in the league.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it for some guys, right? Because they'll essentially be taking a pay cut to go to NFL. Like a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who's most likely going to go like 3rd, 4th round.
Pay cut.
He's taking a pay cut to come to the league.
That's incredible.
Which is crazy. So I get it. Like I have a 6 year. I'm going to get a couple $1 million.
How much do you think Dylan Gabriel's making?
This year, he's probably making like 3 at least, 3 or 4.
How much do these back up? I know I hate to be in somebody's pockets, but Chase Daniel made a killer.
Yeah, when you get to the NFL, but that's
like you got to get to your second contract to do that. Yeah, that's not guaranteed.
And plus, once you get to your second contract quarterback, you're playing until you're 35 anyway.
Yeah,
there's not. It's
like
not
Chase
that
was
big a
blessed
deal.
enough to,
whereas if you're a running back,
go to perfect situations to be the backup and never have to actually play.
Running backs could legitimately be stealing money from themselves if they don't go to the league and get that second contract.
Are there a lot of O-lineman transfers? Are there as many transfers from the O-line as there are like this guy?
It's every position now, bro.
Not as much. But
he's got the.
He had 4 different high schools.
Bear Alexander has the Georgia tattoo with the Penn State jersey and a USC avatar profile picture.
I mean, that is a microcosm of the world we live in now.
And something's got to be done.
You're not. Nobody's taking over the NFL.
Correct. They're not allowed.
The NFL has taken over. Yeah. Okay, and that's the way it is.
The problem is the dollar figures just still aren't there the way they are in the NFL.
Correct.
So the top end,
where you could eliminate money like Liv?
You could eliminate eligibility rules, and you could pay some guys and convince them to stay in college longer. Maybe some like running backs, right? Who are. Yeah. But you can't compete with the NFL because they still make more money than you. The NFL still makes a lot more than you do as college
feels
football.
Like PGA and Liv.
Yeah.
If you got the right backing, this concept with the right backing could
that's
be
what I do. That's probably my biggest worry is a Liv appearing though. Is Saudi money because they have just stupid money.
A couple sheiks start getting into pigskin, and they're
Watson
into it.
Partnering with Bono, Shire, or whatever.
Oh my gosh!
And creating the leagues that they just have. They would be able to pay. I mean, we saw what the Liv contracts were. They would be able to fork over an insane amount of money and then make it a global game that they're putting these games in
the Premier League of
that's what I fear, because then that would obviously take
League.
America's game away from America, which I hate.
You can take it and pry it from my dead face.
So that to me is probably
come and get them.
If there's a threat to the NFL, that to me is the biggest threat. College could sneak some players in for longer eligibility in college, but it won't degrade the NFL game.
Correct. I mean, the only thing I think is just hurt the development of guys in regards to going to the NFL, because there's not guys that stay in one system and actually develop. They're changing systems year in and year out, and that hurts them when they get to the next level and have to stay in one system to be a quarterback, to be a running back, to be an offensive lineman.
It's a relationship business. And if you struggle to stay in these relationships at the university level, I promise you it's going to be even harder when you get to the National Football League. And you can tell the guys who struggle relationally, they struggle to have success in the NFL, and they don't have that support system inside the locker room.
And right now, just how it's set up with college, if they don't implement any sort of rules around whether it's transfer portal, NIL, unless they have any regulations, if it's still the Wild West for the next, say, half decade, they're losing fans. They will lose fans.
Yeah.
It's just the game will not grow. It's in this current incantation, when you have to have a new roster every single year and new players, you're no longer what made college football the unique product that it was, different from the NFL. You become a minor league, and then you're no different from UFL.
When we used to get guys drafted, and same way as you, when we would get guys drafted and there would be a guy from Alabama, I knew who he was before I got to see him play, because I understood the kind of program Nick Saban ran and how guys would stick it out and ride the bench for a while for an opportunity to play at the highest level. Or we'd get a kid from Georgia, and I knew the style of play they would have, like Roquan Smith, for example. I'm talking about Roquan, I'm talking about Eddie Jackson.
Correct.
These are guys that grinded their way to the top of those those programs, became the leaders, and then they got to the NFL. Nowadays, you draft a guy from Penn State, and he could have a USC tattoo on. And I don't know who the hell that guy is my point.
All right. There's our Wednesday mailbag edition. Fun. We'll be back tomorrow doing a full week 16 preview. Until then, keep pushing.
Drive safe.